Howdy, everybody, and welcome back to Ref Shot Outdoors. Well, today we're going to go over a couple different sidearms for when you're out in the back country. And, in 2026, it seems like it's getting to be more and more important to have a sidearm when you're out in the woods. Or really just about anywhere, to tell you the truth. But you think about Montana, Wyoming, the grizzly bears, they're not hunted, so they're very aggressive. Alaska, it's always been a good idea to have a sidearm. Black bear attacks, while are rare, I guess, they do happen, especially a wounded black bear. And if you, for some reason, get separated from your rifle, you want your handgun, on you. If you pay any attention really to, I know they're hard to find to hear from, but there's another guy on here on YouTube, Chooks Outdoor Adventures. He actually does series on this, and he follows a lot of and documents bear attacks. There was one a couple of years ago in Wyoming. It was a guided elk hunter, and the client got his elk, and the guide was gutting it or quartering it, skinning it or something, and they got attacked. The guide actually had a 10 millimeter, I think, on him, or maybe he didn't have it on him, or I can't remember all the details, but the client got it and couldn't fire it and threw the gun at the bear or something and ran away, and the guide ended up getting killed. I think that was in Wyoming just a few years ago. And then there was another guy up in Alaska. This is a few years ago. And he was moose hunting, shot a moose. The moose ran into some timber. He went in after it, and a grizzly, I think it was a grizzly, might have been a brown bear, came out of the woods and knocked his rifle out of his hands. His rifle went spinning into the woods, and the bear was on top of the guy, and he drew a 44 mag from a chest holster, put a few rounds into the bear as it was biting down on his head, and was able to get the bear off of him. So sidearms are getting pretty important to carry in today's day and age. We're kind of going backwards as far as civilized, I guess. But so what do you choose? It really, I mean, a lot of guys now in 2026 are going for semi-autos. Now, I don't have a 1911 here, but I do have a Glock 20 in 10 millimeter. And I like the 10 millimeter cartridge. I think it's very, very versatile. As far as for an EDC gun, I mean, there's so many different ammunition choices, factory loads, that you can get for the 10 millimeter auto that makes it a pretty easy choice. And if you just want one, pistol for just about everything, the 10 works. Now, 10 millimeter auto, obviously not super powerful. It's about like a 357 Magnum, ballistic wise. Kind of the idea behind it is using it for a bear backup. You got 15 rounds and you can reload fast. And the idea is accuracy by volume, spray and pray. get a lot of bullets into that bear. Which, if you're of that mentality, which, if you think about it, if I was, um, being mauled, I would want more ammo. Of course, you're not going to be able to probably drop an empty mag, insert a full one, and obviously the slide would lock open, but you just gotta hit that. But anyway, I do like carrying this. They're light, handy, really fun to shoot, and with hardcast ammo. There's some people say you can't use a stock Glock barrel with hardcast ammo, especially non-coated like buffalo bore. I haven't seen any problem with it. Although and it seems to work, and that could be one of the reasons I'm not a very good shot with the Glock. But from what I've seen, it's fine. It works just fine. I guess a disadvantage of the Glock or any semi-auto, in general, is that you can't push the muzzle up into, say, the bear or something if it's on top of you. So this is if you push on it now, you see how the slide comes back. It's out of battery, won't fire. So, but that I don't think is that big of a disadvantage, because hopefully you stop the bear before it's on top of you. But anyway, that's just something. I kind of wish I had a 1911 out here to show you, but 45 ACP, there's getting to be a lot of documented cases of that being successfully deployed against brown bears. So I would not be scared of carrying a 45 ACP. But anyway, so there's your semi-auto option. Moving into 6 guns, single action revolvers. This is a 45 Colt new Vaquero, so I can shoot tier 2 loads in this. Now, a lot of people are going to say 45 Colt is kind of wimpy. Well, yeah, the factory loads are wimpy. I don't think, maybe for black bear, bumming around in the woods in like the Midwest, not in grizzly country, I wouldn't be afraid of carrying 45 Colt factory. But yeah, if I'm going up against a grizzly, I want at least a tier 2 load. And with a hardcast bullet, a tier 2 load is very easy to shoot accurately, this is my favorite pistol to carry. And I can shoot accurately and quickly. And it's not stupidly, there isn't stupid recoil. Now, other single actions you can get, I don't know if you can get the new Vaquero in 44 mag, but you can get the Black Hawk, obviously. And the Black Hawk, really strong. Now when it comes to 45 Colt, I think the flat tops, you can only shoot tier 2 loads, and then some of them you can shoot tier 3 loads. That gets really confusing. Obviously, if you step it up into like the Bisley or Super Blackhawk Bisley, they make one in 454, obviously, 454 Casull. Obviously, you could load the living snot out of 45 Colt then, but, Freedom Arms makes some great ones. But Freedom Arms price point is kind of out of reach for the average man. And not saying that they're not they're a very, very good revolver. But I have heard of some instances their tolerances are so tight that any little bit of sand, dirt, grass, getting in between the barrel and the cylinder can lock them up. Now, how true is that? I don't know, because I don't even know if I have seen Freedom Arms in person before. Actually at a gun store in Sitka, Alaska, but I don't think I've ever actually held one. But if you're going to go with single action for a Woods carry pistol, I would go with probably a Ruger. I think I would stay away from the Birdies and the Colt clones, just because they're not quite as strong. And another thing, that you can only safely carry 5 because they have a hammer mounted firing pin, and the Ruger has a transfer bar, meaning when you let the trigger go, the firing pin isn't resting on the primer of the cartridge in line with the barrel, under the hammer. So now you can safely carry 6. So that's kind of what I like about the Rugers. And with practice, you can shoot these fast and accurately. And then, 45 Colt factory ammo is kind of expensive especially for how weak it is. But if you are into reloading, you can certainly up the power and save money on practice ammo. But of course, you don't have to go with 45 Colt. I mean, 357 Magnum, 44 Magnum, 41 Magnum, 454 Casull, and then if you're rich, 500 line ball, or I've looked at Magnum Research BFR. I actually almost bought one. It was in 454, and I liked it, so I wouldn't be opposed to that. But how this feels in my hand and how it runs, I mean, and it's not. They call it an indexing palm, where you can come back a little bit. Not once you reach a certain point, then it doesn't go back, but for the most part, it'll spin both ways. And it just, when I'm reloading, unloading, reloading, it just feels good in my hand. And that's why this is my favorite sidearm to carry in the woods. Then of course we can, there's double action 6 guns. This is a Smith & Wesson Model 686, 357 Magnum. These are really nice pistols to carry, not too heavy. The grip is really nice. It feels good in your hand. And accurate. These are really accurate. And 357 Magnum, loaded up with hardcast bullets, get something from Buffalo Bore. I don't think I would be afraid to take on a Grizzly with that. It might be a little on the light side, but for what most people do, 357 is just fine. Obviously big advantage is your reload time, because you got the swing out cylinder and eject all 6 at once. Again, you can carry all 6. No need to load 5. And I know it's the cowboy way, but if the Cowboys would have had transfer bars in their 6 guns, they would have carried 6. One thing I was going to say about a double action 6 gun, we've probably all done this, where you spin it and then, go like that and whip the cylinder back in. Looks cool, sounds cool. Don't do it. It can mess up the timing. So that's something to keep in mind. But when you're looking at double action revolvers, the Ruger Red Hawks and Super Red Hawks are really nice. Their grip shape and form is awesome. I actually like the Super Red Hawk better than the Red Hawk, but for mitigating recoil, it's amazing, and you can get it in some real heavy hitters like 454 Casull. But Smith & Wesson's, the 629 44 mag is a really good option. The Ruger Red Hawk. I don't have a whole lot of experience with the Taurus, the Raging Hunter, I think they call it, but that's a big, that's a hunting handgun. That's not something I would carry as a backup. But something like this, I would. I don't like a super long barrel, even in a single action, they make 7.5. That's just too long. You can't get it. It's unwieldy. It's not nearly as handy as this is a 4 5/8. I don't even know how long it is on this Smith & Wesson, but it's definitely a handy length. And anyway, a couple other good Smith & Wessons are the X-Frame, the 460 Smith & Wesson mag, and the 500 Smith & Wesson mag. I knew a guide up in Alaska who carried a Smith & Wesson X-Frame 500, and we were out shooting our pistols before the season, and I said, hey, are you going to shoot your 500? He's like, no. He's like, that thing's not fun to shoot. I'm like, oh, okay. So there's that consideration. And I think they're really expensive to shoot too. But so yeah, that's kind of what it comes down to. Obviously, another big advantage with the double action revolver is if things are going south quickly, you can always just pull the trigger instead of having to cock the hammer. But that's a huge advantage over a single action. But yeah, so really when it comes down to what kind of sidearm you want to carry, my biggest preferences are how it feels in my hand, how well I shoot it, if it feels good to me. And a lot of people tell you the same thing. It's got to feel good to you. It's got to feel right, feel natural. And, if you're more of the modern spray and pray, that's accuracy by volume, try to get as many bullets as you can. Obviously, modern polymer frame semi-automatic is going to be your favorite. If you're more traditional, prefer a more powerful round, less power, or less rounds but more power, probably more accuracy, feels good in your hands, go with a 6-gun, either double action or single. So anyway, I think this has become the longest video on the channel to date. So if anybody stayed through the whole thing, I salute you for it. Anyway, I'm Pete Refshaw with Refshaw Outdoors, and keep your powder dry.